League managers can finally exhale after a wild round 15 in Major League Rugby to wrap up the fantasy regular season. Now, it's playoff time, baby. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode number 19 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our league members. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers community members and everyone else taking along on this fantasy rugby journey in the MLR. And hey, the boys are back in town, baby. All three of us back on the show. It's been quite some time, guys. I feel like
it's been a long time. I've got on a flight. I made it back home. Vandy fixed his back. He broke his spine. He's back now.
Broke it in half, clean off.
Now we got Ryan back in the flesh, except we're together, baby.
We're together, yeah. And I got my chance last week with Maddie to catch up with him after his self-healing rugby fantasy tour that we talked about for the past month or so, which he thought may have turned things around, but not so much. And we'll get into why it wasn't so much in this week. But Vandy, I feel like we haven't spoken in a while on air, dude. The last time we heard about you was you suffered a little bit of a work accident, had to take a little bit of time off, got put on the IR for a little bit. But how you feeling now, man? Feels good to be back?
Oh, yeah, more of a formality than anything. But, nothing can keep this guy down. Even a broken back, clean in half, put it right back together, threw some duct tape on her, and I'm here, boys. Let's go.
I believe they call it that you got Dallas Jackaled.
Oh, yeah. All right, moving on here. I was thinking something along those lines, but we'll move on from that one. But yeah, it was a jam-packed week, guys, and we mentioned it last show how there was a lot on the line heading into round 15, which also was the very last regular season matchup week for our fantasy rugby league. So there was playoffs on the lines, there were side bets on the lines, there was the top seed in our league on the line, all of it. And it was all answered in round 15. And we're going to break down all of that for you guys who are listening, all of you league members listening. But before we get into it, just like always, guys, we got to tell the people where they can follow us, and that is at the Fantasy Ruckers, Twitter, Instagram. You can join our Discord community. That link is in all of our social bios and everything else. So make sure you follow us there. Make sure you subscribe down below in our YouTube channel. We post the video portion of our podcast onto YouTube as well. And then, join that Discord community. Get involved in the Major League Rugby conversation and the Major League Rugby fantasy conversation as well. It's been a blast with a lot of the guys in that community, both who are in the league and not in the league as well. And that is also, I keep on teasing this every single week, that is also going to be the place. The Discord community and our socials is where people who are not yet playing fantasy Major League Rugby may get an opportunity in the near future. So to find out when those spots open up, you need to be following us at the Fantasy Ruckers. So now that's out of the way, now that we got that done, man, it is now time to break down round 15. But we do have some news and notes that we need to get onto that may have an impact going into the fantasy playoffs here. So let's talk about it. The first thing here, news and notes wise, guys, I feel like the biggest thing with the growth of this league is the content that is being pushed out, and we love just watching more and more rugby content to grow it here in North America. And we are going to have an opportunity to do that very, very soon with some talent that may make a big impact in the MLR in the future. And that is the Rugby Network has announced that they will be streaming the academy teams that are partaking in the Coast to Coast Cup. And I did see a preliminary schedule with regards to that, with how they're setting all that stuff up. If I remember correctly, day one starts on May 28th. That's going to include the Toronto Arrows Academy. Game day 2 is also going to include the Arrows Academy as well. So you can go check all that out. They're going to play all those games on the Rugby Network. That first game being on May 28th. And yeah, it'll be fun to watch. There'll be a lot of guys in there that, are trying to make their way into the MLR. And yeah, you may see some names there that we may be saying down the line that could have a fantasy impact in the next few years. So who knows? So that'll be something that we can definitely tune into. Another thing that I saw in the MLR universe, another massive name may be making a appearance or maybe signing with the team in the MLR, and it is LA, and is a man named Quade Cooper. I mean, we've seen if you are in the rugby world, you know who Quade Cooper is. He has the funny kickoff stance that he does. There are highlights of his steps that he's done that I've shown a bunch of people when they're first getting the MLR or getting into rugby in general. I don't know, Vandy, if I've showed you any of those clips. I definitely do have to show you some of those clips if I haven't yet. But yeah, Matt, I'll go to you first, man. Quade Cooper to the MLR, maybe? If he does do that, is it, it's another Giltini's guy. I don't know.
No, I mean, look, the Giltinis seem to just want to bring in the whole Australian team. The Rugby United New York, New Jersey wants to bring in the entire All Blacks team. So, like, what's this just going to end up all like the old boys Wallabies versus the old boys All Blacks? And you know what? I'm all for it.
Let's do it. That was not the direction where I thought you were going with that. I thought it was like, okay, old boys. But all right, let's get the old boy.
I was expecting this league's a wash.
Is this even a North American league anymore? I don't know. But no, hey, old boys Wallabies, old boys All Blacks. I'm all for. We'll see whether or not that's the Giltinis and Rugby New York's nickname.
Yeah. So it's gonna be the old boys All Blacks, the old boys Wallabies versus all the young boys South Africans.
Yeah. All the Vanders. But yeah, some big news. Nothing, I should clarify, nothing is official yet, but there are inklings about it, and there are rumors circulating, and some people are saying it's a deal that's all but done. So hey, look out on social media, look out on the Giltini social media, look out in the MLR Twitter sphere, and hey, you may be seeing in the near future an announcement that Quade Cooper is coming stateside, and that team, being the LA Giltinis, like Matt said, already has a bunch of Australians, and they'll only add another pretty marquee one in Quade Cooper. So let's move on here, and this one's quick here. I love just squeezing in these kind of fresh news, just because I think these milestones is something that is something that any league tries to grow and build those, to just build a history and just have some more accolades that you can kind of refer back to. And a couple new guys, and I feel like we mention a few here every single week, but a couple more hitting that 50 cap milestone. But this time on this show, it ain't players that are hitting that 50 cap milestone. We got a referee and a head coach. So Scott Green, he's one of the favorite refs in the MLR. He hit that 50 cap milestone over the weekend, as well as Nate Osborne, head coach for the NOLA Gold. He also made his 50th cap appearance. So pretty cool to see some guys, spending a pretty long time in this league, especially from a referee standpoint, man, because if you can, we see characters from, Super Rugby, and you get familiar with these referees. So to have Scott Green kind of be in the MLR and have been established in there for quite some time now, and he only continued to grow that. It'll be cool to see and follow along the rest of his career in the MLR. So with that being said, I don't think there's any more. Yeah.
Hey, it's funny you say, I haven't heard a lot of coaches hit that 50 cap yet.
Right.
It's kind of funny to hear that you have more players ahead of that than coaches. So you have way more turnover at the top of an organization than the bottom. That's pretty wild to me. I don't know.
Here's my take on that. When they first started, they had to hire pretty local. It'll be tough to hire, but you can still have those local players playing for your team for those local coaches. But once the MLR kind of started growing, then they were able to pull guys from overseas, or pull guys from higher levels and get better coaching. But the players are still the same, because you're still getting from the same pool of players, really, with some added some.
Yeah, and sorry, I just got to clarify this quickly. Is that he's not the NOLA Gold head coach? I got mixed up here. He was the former NOLA Gold head coach, working for them from 2018 to 2021. He was actually the coach now, the interim coach of Old Glory DC, who took over once they relieved the duties of the Old Glory DC head coach who got relieved earlier in the season.
In that case, what a 50th cap. Wow, you lose by I don't know how much to the team that you just coached. So
True.
So,
True.
I guess the interim isn't going to go too much longer.
Yeah, so we'll see. But hey, anyways, 50th cap for Nate Osborne, interim head coach for the Old Glory DC. I think that's all the news and notes that I have. Definitely quieting down here with the roster moves in the MLR as we approach nearing the end of the season. I feel like a lot of the teams are starting to solidify their rosters that they're going to make this championship playoff push with. So not surprised there. But yeah, we'll keep everyone listening up to date. If anything drops during this show, we'll make sure to bring that to you guys as soon as possible.
I've got some news and
Okay.
notes. So, quick notes. Former Toronto Arrows player. Vandy, you're laughing as if I'm going to bring up something silly. This is serious, okay? This is serious.
I missed you guys, man. I'm just glad you guys are back.
Theo Sauter, former Arrows player. I think Arrows cap number 37. World Cup for Canada. He went to. He was on the 7 series. He was also with the Arrows when they went for their championship. Okay. He has announced his retirement, and he will be done playing rugby because of health concussion issues. So I played with him. Wish the guy the best. Great career. Guy's a stud. Anyways, let's move on. Just wanted to throw that in there.
There we go. Well, there we wrap up some news. Matt's just not a pretty face. He also is pretty linked with the league too, apparently. So they're
not much of a pretty face either.
Ooh, okay. Round 15 matchup times. I'm glad we have both of you back, man. I don't have to be the one now firing shots. You guys got that covered amongst.
How am I gonna dodge all these, man?
Yeah, those were a tough 2 weeks. That's good.
Right? I grilled Vandy a couple weeks ago. Grilled Matt last week. Now I can leave it up to you two guys, so it's all good. But yeah, there's a lot to break down here. Let's get right into these round 15 matchups. And like we said, with these results and with these matchups, there was a lot on the line when it comes to fantasy terms. Top seed was on the line. There were 3 teams that were pushing for that final playoff spot. And there was a side bet between Vandy and Maddie here that got decided pretty interestingly, which we'll get into, but it had a large part with these fantasy players that played this past weekend, obviously. So we're going to break down all the fantasy performance, break down the matchups that happened in round 15, and then we'll get into what everyone is waiting for and what everyone is listening about, the results from round 15 and who made the first ever playoffs for our Fantasy Ruckers League. So we're going to announce all that.
I'm just so grateful I got to be part of such a tight playoff race. I was in there. I felt like I was right there. I was about 5 or 7 wins away from making it. So, I was right there, boys.
If you had...
6 weeks ago, I thought I was making it. I really did. I was like, I'm gunning for the top.
Yeah, that was me 15 weeks ago.
So yeah, let's get into it. Lots of big fantasy performances this past week. I will mention the biggest thing I think that really popped to me when going through these games was, man, we had some high-scoring games this week. Outside of just the New England Free Jacks Rugby Atlanta match, that was the early one on the Friday that kicked off the week. Outside of that matchup, dude, every single match was high scoring, lots of points, which obviously translate, like we mentioned in earlier shows, into a lot of fantasy points. So it is a lot of fun. It's a lot more fun to play fantasy when there are a lot of points. I mean, Vandy, when you play fantasy football, it's way more fun to play and have players playing in a 50 to 40 game than it is a 10 to 7 game, right? So same thing applies here in fantasy rugby and in Major League Rugby as well. Just before we head into the breakdown of these matchups, just things that got kind of solidified after this week. The Gilgronis became the first team in the West to clinch a playoff spot. So that was a big thing, even though they were on bye. I think the loss from, I want to say, the Giltinis, didn't push them ahead because the Giltinis lost to San Diego. They weren't able to do that. The Utah Warriors, Vandy, sorry, bud.
I knew it was coming.
Are eliminated from playoff contention.
Get that lip back in your mouth, Matt. Get that lip back on. I'll put that lip right back in your...
Hey, buddy, you're going to wear that jersey nice and proud for playoff... Oh, wait. You're out of playoff contention. Dang it.
So tough one, Vandy. I mean, you chose the people chose the team for you. Obviously, it wasn't the best season for the Utah Warriors.
People hate you.
Nothing new there, eh?
I will say some of their games have been promising. We'll get into the game against the Houston SaberCats. And hey, there's still 3 more matches that they have to play in the Major League Rugby regular season. So still lots more to cheer for, Vandy. Still lots more to cheer for. So we'll definitely get into that. And then the last one here, Matthew mentioned this team at the top of the show, but in a way that we didn't want to mention them, but we'll mention them in a more proper way here. The Dallas Jackals. After not having won a match yet this season, they have now guaranteed their number 1 overall pick in the 2022 MLR draft. I want to go to Matthew first. How big is this?
Have I clinched it?
No, ours is in a keeper league, Matt.
Oh, never mind.
So from year to year.
Wait, I'd stick with my team next year?
No, it's not a keeper league. You got to redraft it.
No. Do I get number 1 overall pick next year?
No, we do lottery.
We'll give it to you.
We'll let the people decide. They're listening.
I just Dallas Jackal myself so that I could get first round pick.
So all of our league members that are listening to this out there or watching on YouTube, if all of you guys think that Matthew deserves a pity number 1 overall pick next year, hey, speak out in the Discord group. But I am right now leaning that there is going to be a lottery draft next season, just like we did this past season. But
you can have the highest odds.
If you let me have first pick, I'll pick like Ryberg or something first.
You liar. No, he'll pick Bodie and Waka first overall, and then he'll have a season like friggin' one of like.
I thought you were gonna say injury. I'm like, don't use it.
No. We don't say that. We don't wish injury on anyone on this podcast.
We don't
Absolutely
use
not.
that word.
Absolutely not.
But it's not next season. You know what season it is? This season.
It is this season, and we still got lots to go through in this season. So let's talk about round 15. Those were the things that got solidified after round 15. Let's talk about it. With that opening matchup on the Friday, New England Free Jacks taking on Rugby Atlanta. 15-10 is your final score, with the Free Jacks coming on top, now having won 10 weeks in a row. Man, this Free Jacks team wasn't necessarily the most pretty way to win this past week, but hey, they still got the win. Good teams find a way to get the W. Rugby Atlanta was able to minimize those big plays outside of the Slade McDowell try, but there were a lot of penalties. It was a gritty game, so really back and forth. But at the end, the New England Free Jacks coming in on top. Vandy, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on this matchup here?
Well, you knew in that first 5 minutes when who ran over? I think it was actually Slade McDowell.
It might have been.
I'm pretty sure it's Slade McDowell. He runs over and just rubs Buddy on the head after they got a try. Like, defender makes the play. Slade McDowell just comes up, sneaks underneath, pats the guy's head. They get up, start clashing. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. And then obviously Slade again pulled. I think it was I'm gonna butcher it. Johan Momsen.
Yep. Good job. That was good. Johan Momsen,
yeah,
nice.
He pulls him back. Buddy just picks him up, slams him right on his head. I'm like, WWE days. Where's the table?
And I mean, hey, just what you would expect with a lot on the line with these two teams as well, battling it out in the East. Obviously, Rugby Atlanta in the midst of a playoff race here, sitting in that final spot. Free Jacks obviously rolling. So it was a big match, long line, a lot of emotion, a lot of and like you said, Ben, you can see it on the pitch that these guys have a lot to play for.
That guy from New England's getting suspended for sure. Whoever headshot Connor Keys.
Yeah.
That was dirty, man. That was dirty. Really dirty.
I don't think I caught that one, but hey, we'll definitely see it.
They it down. They TMO'd it and gave him a yellow. I thought it was going to be a red.
Hey,
that was dirty.
We'll look out
on...
Is
that the one where he didn't even drop? Like, he went straight up.
He went straight and just, like, head to head. Like, didn't even try and wrap him. And the ref, like, reviewed it. He's like, he brought him over. He's like, hey, that's a pathetic effort at a tackle. You have to get lower. Like, you have to.
Yeah.
It was pretty nasty.
Well, we'll have a look at the disciplinary report and see whether or not there's something that comes out with that, because the MLR has been pretty decent with that and coming out with that and kind of being clear with that. So far, so good. So we'll definitely keep an eye out on that. But Matt, before we get into the fantasy performances, what were your thoughts on Free Jacks Atlanta?
I mean, like Vanny said, physical game. I think he said it all. I saw my boy Marco Jans Vons Mons Cons
Yeah.
Stans Ronsberg score.
Yeah.
I actually heard the commentator say his name, Marco Jense.
Yeah, he did.
Marco Jense von Ronsberg?
Oh, dude, all of this. I think the one that we've done the worst. I think we've said on Houston, Gideon Van Wyck. We've been saying that it's Gideon Van Vyk, and you're just like, what? And like those aren't even. You're not even in getting into the Maori names yet.
That's called like Gideon Van Syke.
Oh my. I wish I had my soundboard on that because that. Oh my gosh. And then we were watching some of the highlights just to go over it earlier today, and I was watching it on the TV, and my mom was passing by, and she saw I forget what his name is on the Giltinis. I got to pull it up. What is it? Oh, Les Leolai Makin. It takes up his full jersey, and he sees it, and my mom's just like, "How do you even pronounce that?" So
yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, so you got the South African names, you got the Maori names, you got everything.
But back to the game. You know what we saw a lot of? Oh my gosh, did we see a lot of yellow? And I'm just thinking about. I mean, you're going to talk about the fantasy implications.
Yeah.
But we talk about this one wasn't high scoring, but did it have an impact on fantasy? I mean, somebody has Momsen. Right?
Yep.
I think somebody definitely has. I think Josh Larson got a card at some point.
Yep.
So people definitely have those guys. They probably started. It has to have impact, and it's like a negative impact, but still, it's got to have impact on fantasy.
And that's
guy got one.
Yeah.
Ready.
Yeah.
Got
Jesse
another
Gray.
one. Like.
Yeah. Don't Vandy. Don't start overthinking the names, man. It's just Jesse.
I know.
Okay? It makes you double think, right?
Look at it. I'm like,
right.
Let's go with Yoski.
But it's like the start. Now we have an understanding of like those Starbucks people. You know what I mean? Like it's the simplest name, but you're like it's spelled out Ryan, and you're like Rianne.
Vandy. Vandy. This is the rule to go by. All right. Every W is a V. Okay. Every R is a R.
Yeah. You gotta get. So let's get into some fantasy performances here in this New England Free Jacks Rugby Atlanta game. But Matt, that's a great point. It may not have had a positive fantasy impact, but yeah, definitely a negative fantasy
impact.
I'll be
interested to see who's the lowest point scorer. Who got the most negative?
Well, that's the fun. When I was statting out these games, and I'll go through the emotions that I went through for you guys when I was statting out these games. But there was one team in particular that was starting out in the negatives, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, is this match going to really get decided in this one?" So we'll explain that once we get to the Commissioner League update. But yeah, fantasy performances here. How do you want me to say this now? Marco Janze Van Rensburg.
No, you got to go Marco Jans Vons Tons Mons Cons Rensburg.
All right, what he said, 5.3 fantasy points. Yaquin de la Vega Mendia, he was able to get 3.5 off of the boot. And then, since we're mentioning since we're mentioning negative fantasy points here because they did have an impact here in this past week, Jason Dam, -3 points. He played the full 80, but got the -4 on that yellow card. And then Johan Mumsen, like you mentioned, also a yellow card as well. And then moving on, to the New England Free Jacks. We got 6.4 points for Ryan Conradi, 3.9 for Slade McDowell. He got the try, the nice, pretty, big-time try, but then got that reduced, taken back with the yellow card that he received as well. So not as much of a fantasy impact, at least positively, for Slade McDowell like he could have. You mentioned it, Jesse Peretti, -4 points, and then Bodine Waka once again. If he ain't scoring try, he's still getting it with the boot, 3.5 points for him. So that was the New England Free Jacks Rugby Atlanta game. Let's move on to the next one. And I think this one we can spend probably a brief time on. We don't need to talk too much because it seems like it's the same storyline every single week. But I will say, I think Matthew has something to say. I think he solved something this past week. But the Toronto Arrows took on the Dallas Jackals. We mentioned it. What did we say last week in your tips?
Pick up your arrows, boys.
And it basically paid off, but not so much.
I picked up all the wrong ones.
But in this one, 57-0. And I believe last week we were arguing about Matt and I. We were talking about the line that was set on Tackle the Numbers, Glorious Rugby, that game, that pick'em game that we've been playing, Vandy. The spread was set at -26, and we were questioning whether or not to go with that. And obviously, 57 points.
I think we learned a pretty good, valuable lesson that the spread against the Dallas Jackals is never big enough.
True.
If it's 50, somebody scores 60. If it's 60, somebody scores scores 100. It's never enough this season, okay?
Right? Apparently not.
Anyways, I'm so mad that Vandy, you won. Beat me with my own boy, Jack McRogers.
Oh.
All right? I'm pissed about that,
I've been
but this is
holding
not
on to
what
him
I
for
want to
like
talk
3
about.
weeks.
This is not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about them Dallas Jackals because I figured out the equation. I figured it out. So, if you go through the Dallas Jackals lineup, tell me how many Vaughns you see. I see 0.
Oh my gosh. I thought this was actually going to be productive.
I see no
right.
Vaughns.
You're right.
No Von Vicks. No Von Vikes. No Von Wicks. No Von Sykes.
Not even on
None of them. None of them. Okay?
Okay.
So-
do you have more? Okay.
Well, that's it. You got to have either South Africans, you got to have either Pacific Islanders, or you got to have, well, that includes Australians, or you're going to be 0-15.
Okay.
I mean-
let me just say this. I just want to say this. No, don't entertain this, Vandy. I'm not allowing you. No.
Show me a point that argues against that.
Houston just won, and they have Van der Sheaf, Van Vyk, Van Vick, Van Tyke.
Okay. I'm not here to say any, because it's hard to argue anything for this Dallas Jackals team, right? But Matthew comes up to me before the show and he's like, guys, I got it. I have the solution to why the Dallas Jackals haven't won yet. And I'm thinking in my head, oh, this is going to be productive. This is going to be some, and he's coming spewing out this stuff. So
much.
Hold on. Let's just think about it for a second, Vandy. You know, you just got beat by Houston. How many South Africans do they have?
With the last name Van de Poel, I mean, I'd have to agree. You don't have enough Vans.
Oh,
No Vans.
there we
No
go.
Vans.
Damn. All right. There we go.
It's hard to argue that logic.
There we go. That's all we need to say about that game.
Devin Van
Van der Poel.
So there we go. But that will be as far of a breakdown that we'll have this game. Dallas Jackals are struggling. Toronto Arrows took advantage of it. And the advice continues to be...
Pick up your South Africans. Pick up your guys that are facing the Dallas Jackals.
And it is the LA Guiltinis next week that we will be playing the Dallas Jackals. So that is going to be a spicy one for the first round of playoffs. I don't know. We'll get into it when we get into our picks round. But let's quickly here talk about the fantasy performances. Obviously, the Dallas Jackals not getting anything. I mean, they got goose egged on the board. The only thing that people are getting are that full 80-minute participation ribbons out there, getting that one participation point for playing that full game. So there is that. So the highest point on Dallas this week was a singular 1 point, and I don't think anyone started a Dallas Jackal this week, so there is that in our league. And then moving on to obviously the big fantasy performers, Toronto Arrows set piece coming in big with 7 fantasy points. I believe they had 3 set piece tries, I want to say. That would make 3, I think. Gaston Mires, 7.8 points. Ronan Foley, 7.3. Ross Broad, hey, he's back after coming back from injury. It's good to see him back. He made a big impact scoring a try, and I think he had 3 try assists. So big performance there, 11.6 fantasy points. Good to see your boy Will Kelly out there playing fly half.
Kelly, even better to see my boy Jack McRogers.
Well, I was just going to say. So Jack McRogers, right? We need to get him on the show at some point. Matt and him, played Rugby Ontario together. Jack has been a supporter of this show, and we're trying to figure out a way to get him on the show to talk about him. But I thought about this, okay? Yes, I understand that both of his tries came off of set piece tries, which obviously has the help of your other teammates, but he must have had some of that. I don't know if you guys remember the scene from Space Jam, but Bugs Bunny comes in with the special H2O, the Space Jam juice. I think Jack McRogers took a little sip of the Space Jam juice and then comes back out and scoring 2 tries, and now he's leading the Toronto Arrows with tries. And I think he's subbed on for more games than he's actually started this season. So that's awesome, man. And for him to be a supporter of the show, a buddy of Matthew's, it's really cool to see. Yeah. So great job by Jack McRogers. He was able to tally up 12 fantasy points, was the highest scoring player in this match. And then Lalani Faleva, you benefited from this, Vandy, 5.6 fantasy points. And then James O'Neill, 6.8 fantasy points there as well. So the Toronto Arrows obviously sticking to it, taking advantage of a struggling Dallas Jackals team. Another match that I don't think we need to spend too much time on, but we'll talk about the fantasy performers. Nola Gold taking on Old Glory DC. Nola coming out on top, 50-21.
The only thing I want to say, those Nola Gold jerseys were sick.
You like that? You like the Jester jerseys?
Yeah, those are
okay.
Cool. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. They are the I believe it's green, gold, and purple. I think it's like the classic, the classic kind of like Mardi Gras type kind of look and style and whatever. It was very cool. But I think Nola came out of the gates firing hot, scoring I think 2 tries right out the gate, and it really just put Old Glory on the back foot for the entirety of the game. Nola taking advantage of all of that. Quick thoughts, Matt. Matt Vandy said his. Anything for you?
No, I mean, I was just surprised. I think last show I talked about DC Old Glory. You know, they're really coming into their momentum, bringing all of that towards this game. I thought they were going to win, but Nola Gold just looked a little bit too good, and DC Old Glory were just a bit too flat.
Yeah, a little too flat. Talk about these Nola Gold performers, the big one, man. And this one had a huge fantasy impact in our league. Potentially, you could say, won him his playoff spot this season. It was Rugby Morning, who owns Harley Wheeler. 18.3 fantasy point performance, scoring 3 tries. And it was a lot of involvement with Harley Wheeler. So that was a lot of optimism to see. Pat O'Toole getting through there into the try zone a couple times, 11.6 fantasy points for him. Cam Dolan, I think getting a couple of try assists, 5 fantasy points for him. And then Devin Short also finding the try line too, 9.3 fantasy points. And hey, I didn't know this, Vandy, when you picked him up, but it's pretty good to see Damian Stevens kicking, right? And I know it's too late now. I know that it's a little too late now. Maybe it'll help you in the toilet bowl playoff rounds right there. But for sure we're doing a toilet bowl. So maybe he'll help you in there and give you a little bit more kicking insurance. But that's from the NOLA side. Old Glory DC still able to put up 22 points and, hey, still impact. Matt, you benefited from Penny Lasaka's performance, 9.2 fantasy points for him. Rohan Saifaloy adding from the boot, 12 fantasy points for him on a try as well. And then Luke Campbell, 5.5 fantasy points in that match to wrap things up in significant performers in this NOLA Gold Old Glory DC match over the weekend. One that now we're going to spend a little bit more time now. And it's not just because it's Vandy's favorite team, but I thought this was a fun one to watch. Back and forth, tight for basically the entire time. Houston SaberCats taking on the Utah Warriors. Houston coming out on top, 31-27. Vandy, tough to see your boys lose, but it was an exciting match, man. If there's a way that you're okay with losing, it's losing like that in a tough matchup.
Yeah, I mean, their first try was tough. They broke through, very poor tackling. I mean, even the commentators were all over them. Finally got some momentum going when Houston got that pretty tough yellow card, I think pretty early in the game, 20-30 minutes. Finally able to put up a try. But I would say the worst part was that 56-minute try by Houston when who's their 10 again? Coates.
Yeah.
David Coates kicks it up in the air. Pathetic attempt at it by Tonga. Kind of one of those, instead trying to catch it over his head instead of just letting his the guy behind him get it off his hands, off his foot, but he had a clear one. That was kind of the game over. Thought we were going to stop him right at the end and maybe try and put something up. But, I mean, tough one. But like you said, stayed close, stayed very entertaining the whole time.
Yeah. It was competitive. It was competitive. And, hey, I mean, I know that the Utah Warriors aren't playing, obviously, for anything now, but hey, from this point, it's all about building towards next year, I feel like. And they're still playing good rugby. And it's good to see that they're still motivated with 3 matches left in the season. Matt, anything with this one? You love the Space Jam uniforms, right? Excuse me, they're not Space Jam. Space uniforms.
I guess Houston doesn't have a problem. They found themselves in a playoff spot, and, you know, they got some production from their vans, and they're rolling.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun one to watch, that's for sure. I will say, someone that's really stuck out to me was Lance Williams. And not for his try-scoring ability that he's shown in the weeks past, but, man, he was able to distribute the ball pretty well in this one. Yeah. You don't really see it that often, but I believe he was able to get at least 2 try assists, 7 total fantasy points in this performance. Other performers, Saya Uhila, 5.6 fantasy points, Chad Go, 6.7, and then Calvin Whiting from the boot, 3.5 fantasy points for that. And then looking on the Houston SaberCats side, we're looking at some of the negative performances. Juan Pablo Zeiss -4, but guys that really did an impact. David Koetser from also kicking a little bit, 8.1 fantasy points. It seemed like Koetser was really involved in this match, which was good to see. He's kind of, for me, has gone... he's disappeared in matches before, but this one it seemed like he was really distributing the ball well throughout this one. And then Gideon Van Vyk. I got it this time. 5.7 fantasy points to round out the performances with the Houston SaberCats in their win, 31-27. Now moving on to another great match, Rugby New York, Seattle Seawolves, and man, it was a fun one. 30-22, Rugby New York taking this one, and I must say, at least from a Rugby New York perspective, before I let you guys break down this matchup, I have been on the record for the past few shows here saying how much I love this Rugby New York backline, even without Waisake Nahalo and even without Nehe Milner-Skudder. They're getting those backs, but in this match, it was all about the Rugby New York pack. All about the pack. And if they can string those two things together, man, this is going to be a dangerous team. And this is even considering the fact that Nehe Milner-Skudder has yet to come into the lineup yet. They're still waiting for him. It's going to be crazy, man. But before, I get into the fantasy performances here, Matt, I'll start off with you, dude. What did you think of this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tight one. It was pretty high scoring. It looked like some guys were having trouble finding the line and figuring out what the heck the try zone was.
So I thought there was a try, but it was white, yellow, and...
Maybe Rugby New Jersey should maybe take some hints and, have a one line on the field rather than a baseball diamond, football diamond. And maybe they should stick their poles in the ground once in a while and make sure that they're all right before the scrums just knock them over like it's nothing.
Knocks it over,
Yeah, it was. I saw that. I was like, dude, they gotta get on a friggin' rugby field, man. We should not have uprights falling down in the middle of the game. It doesn't make any sense, dude.
It almost feels like if you ever played like 2K Street or FIFA like Street, which is like a basketball game going on in the background. You're like, and their homies just looking over.
Well, there is a basketball game going on in the background.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There was and the guys just lean up against the cage because they got front row views, just hanging out. I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you want to make that, it is pretty sick. Rugby Street. We'll come out with that. But it was. We shouldn't have uprights falling down. But regardless, man, a good performance. But Vandy, what were we saying?
I was happy to see Kogan in there with that beautiful try.
We're just gonna get into that.
That was awesome. And I didn't really understand that Rhino red or yellow card at 10 minutes in, or the last 10 minutes. Sorry,
I must have missed that one. In terms of the ruling, I saw the card, but I wasn't able to piece out what it was for exactly.
Other than that,
that being said, that also had a pretty big impact in fantasy implications too. So that was a big one as well. But you mentioned it, Vandy. It was really, really good to see Andrew Coe break into the try line there. It was actually, I think, a lot of information there. He started at fullback for the first time this season.
Yep.
So may give us a little bit of clarity when it comes to how they're going to approach this situation once everyone is healthy and game ready. So we saw Waisake Nahalo make his. I can't believe that we didn't start off the top with this. Waisake Nahalo.
Because he didn't do anything.
I mean, he had he started off the game and he had two really, really good carries in there, so you could see that he could have a big impact. But from a fantasy perspective, not scoring tries, not making an impact. But so we'll see. Waisake Nahalo starting out in the wing with Troy Lockyer injured, Coe and now back healthy, slotting into that fullback spot, and then obviously Ed Fidow being out on the wing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens when Nehe Milner-Skudder comes in.
Coe, sorry, buddy, but you got ran through on that one try, buddy.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say much on that, but
you and your homie, but nice shot, good effort.
I forget who was the one that scored that one for the Seawolves. I think it was Iasefo's try, I want to say. It was Martin Iasefo's out on the wing. But hey, to be fair, I will say, Cole is also trucking people on his try too going in. He is. So hey, dish one out.
He smoked Duncan Matthews because he forgot where the line was, so he was standing there like an idiot.
Dude, I saw that. Yeah. So going back to figuring out the lines at Rugby New York. But yeah, Co definitely dishing some out and also getting some licks too. So fantasy performances here from the Seattle Seawolves side. Martin Iosefo, 7.9 fantasy points. Dan Creel, 6.9 fantasy points. Both of them find the try line. And then, of course, AJ Alatimu with the boot, 3.5 fantasy points there. And then on Rugby New York side, yeah, Wasagina Hall didn't do anything in his first appearance. He did look good in certain phases, especially at the beginning there. But the guys that did perform, we mentioned it. Andrew Coe, 8.5 fantasy points. Great to see friend of the show Andrew Coe back on the field scoring tries. I really do think that if he didn't get injured and he had a full season to go, I do think he was on the trajectory to, if not finish in the top 10 in our fantasy league, at least to be very close. Because he was in there. He was in the top 3, I think, in week 5, right? And he was scoring a try basically every single week. So it's really good to see Andrew Coe back, I will say. Some other fantasy performers, Dalen Fawcett getting in behind the set piece of Rugby New York, 5.5 fantasy points. And then Caleb Geiger, 5.1 fantasy points. Like we said, the pack of Rugby New York really carrying this team in the Seattle Seawolves with the matchup against the Seattle Seawolves. And if they can just string everything together, man, they're going to be a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with come the next few weeks. And if they make playoffs, come playoff time. So there'll be that too. Now, the last and the most the nationally televised matchup of the week.
Ooh-wee.
San Diego Legion taking on the LA Guiltinis in the Cali Cup. I like this cup name. This cup name is okay. I like this cup name. Cali Cup. The San Diego Legion getting a little bit of payback this matchup after losing to LA Guiltinis earlier in the season. They come out on top, 31-27. Man, I'm not even going to get into the fantasy performances yet because the match itself was just so good. Start with you, Matt. What did you think?
I mean, it was clearly the camo jerseys that really did it in for San Diego.
Those were
so San Diego had to put those on and really show out for the fans. So, but yeah, I mean, exciting match. It's not really much to say. Just so exciting, really close. I really thought the Guiltinis are going to pull it out, but hey, San Diego deserved the dub.
Yeah, they look good. Vanny, what did you think?
Joe Peterson.
There we go.
Little bit of a mix up with the lineup. That's fine. I was at a zoo. Ryan thought he didn't start a fly half. Ryan was like, yo, he's not starting tonight. Yada yada. Whatever. Is what it is. But he had an absolutely insane performance. Guy was just absolute money off the boot. Great things. But Will Hooley, I thought, had a pretty nice little play there to what is it? Freyr, I think it was. Matthias Freyr.
Yeah, Matthias Freyr.
Little
Yeah,
boom,
that was a big one.
Boom, boom. Yeah, with the nice drive.
Yeah,
that was a nice play.
Well, let me clarify.
Yeah,
okay.
Joe Peterson. Sorry, man. Sorry, buddy.
Right. Let me clarify a little bit here, okay? So Vandy's trying to put together a starting lineup, and I, as a good friend, not giving any like outside inside information, just all straight advice just from rugby.
He's not playing.
Right. But stupid me, right? Thinking that all I needed to do was look at that fly half spot and just say, oh, he's not. I don't see the name, big time Joe in there. I don't see Joe Peterson. See Will Hooley's name. All right, that means Joe's not starting. And I was sick to my stomach when I saw that Joe Peterson was playing. And then I looked at it and I realized, oh crap, he's playing fullback like he did earlier in the season. Yeah. And I didn't tell Vandy that. So it was tough. Hey, it all worked out in the end, so it was completely fine. But yeah, big man Joe was big time here in this matchup. But I will say, as much as how well San Diego played in this match, because I don't want to take anything away from the Legion, because I thought they played a pretty solid matchup at halftime. They were dominating. They were able to keep things rolling, and they really took advantage. But I feel like every single time I'm talking about an LA Guiltinis loss, there's a piece of me that says that they do it to themselves. You know what I mean? Like, they're taking penalties and they're giving Joe Peterson, right? They're giving Joe Peterson the opportunity to score those points. Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about a 31-27 match, or you're talking about a 4-point game where 12 of their 31 points was scored off of Joe Peterson's boot. So yes, as much as San Diego played well, you can't be doing that, and you can't be giving away free points, especially.
He's so consistent.
Right. That's what I was just gonna say.
And they were far penalties. Like, those weren't gimmies. And
No.
he's nailing them, man.
No, he's hitting them from 40 meters out, slanted to the side. So you really can't give a kicker like Joe the opportunity like that.
Nope.
No.
So, pretty cool to see the San Diego Legion coming out top there. But yeah, like we mentioned it throughout the year, this Giltini's team has the potential to be a deadly, deadly team. And I would not be surprised come 5 weeks' time, right, a little over a month, that we're saying the Giltinis are back-to-back MLR champions, right? I wouldn't be surprised. But they will not get there by playing and being undisciplined like this. And I feel like we've mentioned that a lot.
Now,
Vandy, you've mentioned this too.
That being said, they didn't get a yellow card. When they
Which is
were
huge.
down, playing tough,
Yep.
they stayed disciplined enough. Sure, penalties are going to happen, but no yellow cards. I thought that was at least the one good sign there. It's like they lost, they were undisciplined, but not totally undisciplined.
Right,
You know?
right. All right, well, let's get into some of the fantasy performances here. We talked about Joe Peterson, huge performances, both from the boot and also scoring a try. 15.2 fantasy points. Hey, my Nanu.
Yep.
I think this pushes him in.
Yeah.
This
I drop him.
Right.
The week I drop him, man.
Right? I think this pushes him finally into the positive total fantasy points for the
There we
first
go.
time in the season. But let me say, that try was just classic Ma Nanu, just beasting his way through guys.
That's the Nanu you guys told me about. I didn't
Yeah.
see it before. That's the Nanu you guys told me about.
Yep.
Exactly. So hopefully we can see a little bit more of that as we go down the year here. But also other fantasy performances. Will Hooley doing pretty well with the try assist and the boot, 5 points for him, and then 5.1 fantasy points for Matthias Fryer. And then looking at the Giltini side of things, we got 8.1 fantasy, or excuse me, let me just scroll down to the 15th week here. We got 6.1 fantasy points for Will Chambers scoring the try on the outside, and then it was really Andrew Tuala taking advantage of LA Giltini's set piece play and pulling across the line there 2 times. I will say that's another bonus thing that is really good to see with how San Diego played, at least defensively. They only limited the Giltinis to just those 2 set piece tries, really nothing explosive or big time plays. Even that Will Chambers try wasn't anything spectacular. It was just like an outside, spin it outside over time. So. Cool.
Next time, reach that in there for me, please.
Hey, you didn't
See
need
that
it this
hand
week.
up at like half a meter?
I know.
Stop being greedy there, Vandy. You had enough.
You haven't dumped on all year, man. I need those points.
And I will say too, is that the way that Chambers scored it, he just like, oh, thanks. Let me just step in and
He
score the try.
literally
Right?
didn't even take a step. He just bent over and put it down. He's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, the San Diego Legion beating the LA Giltinis in a close one, 31-27, in what wraps up a excellent week in both the MLR and in fantasy rugby. It was a lot of fun, and now it's time to talk about how much fun that week was and what impact it had on our fantasy rugby league in Commissioner Yee's league update. And unfortunately, I do not once again have the music because I am on the road. So hit the trumpet, Matt. That was good. It was better than the first time we tried that, that's for sure. But yeah, Commissioner Yee's, hear ye, Commissioner Yee's update of the league. Man, I feel like I need to break this down for everyone. I can't do my classic, just run down the list and talk about kind of just a regular update. I got to break down what was at stake here and then tell you how this matchup turned out. So let's start out, and we're going to save the best one for last, just so you guys know. So we'll save the best one for last here. The first matchup being Lads on Tour taking on the Dankest Anchors, and we mentioned this on social media. This was a matchup to decide the number 1 seed in our league, which would mean that whoever won this matchup would take on the lowest ranking team heading into the first round of playoffs. So the winner of the very first regular season in the Fantasy Ruckers League is Lads on Tour with 28.9 fantasy points, beating Dankest Anchors 13 total fantasy points in. It was largely off of that last minute pickup by Will Kelly, scoring 9.5 fantasy points. mostly off of the boot there. And then also Loritz Vanderskiff also getting 10 fantasy points there. So able to take the dub over Dankus Anchors. Dylan Smith's 4.5 performance and AJ Alatima's 3.5 fantasy point for performance. Mainly the downfall for Dankus Anchors this week was that no one was able to find that try line for him. So Lads on Tour winning the very first regular season of the Fantasy Ruckers League. Now, time to get into the spicy one, and I feel like I need to explain both of these matchups at the same time. So like we said last week, heading into this last week of the regular season in our Fantasy Ruckers League, we had 3 teams competing for the last playoff spot, the 4th playoff spot in our league. Rugby Morning, Bing Bong Theory, and Feral Hippies. And each of them, and you can check out the Discord in terms of the scenarios that they needed to get in and things like that. But out of everything, it is Rugby Morning who finds that last playoff spot. He beats Bing Bong Theory in a shootout, in a absolute shootout, 51.2 fantasy points. Man, this Rugby Morning team has the ability to score 50 points on any given week. It is absolutely crazy. This is the second or third time, I can't remember, that he's been able to do that. Obviously off of the 18.3 performance off of Harley Wheeler. And Bing Bong Theory was still able to put up 45.1 fantasy points and still wasn't able to get a dub. And it was enough. I will say this, just a few hours before we started recording the show. Rugby Morning had to message in our Discord and be like, man, the way I beat you a month ago, or it was like 7 weeks ago, by 0.1 fantasy points. I don't know if you remember that, Vandy, way back, about halfway through the season. We had our closest margin, and it was 0.1 fantasy points that Rugby Morning beat Bing Bong Theory. And then this week, Bing Bong Theory still is able to put 45.1, and it's not enough. So it was enough for Rugby Morning to come out and say, hey, I feel bad for you, Wes. Let me donate $25 to the charity that you are going to choose in terms of if you were to make the playoffs, which is a great gesture by Rugby Morning, but I can't believe that. And then obviously the other matchup, Feral Hippies taking on Victoria's Secret, and the team that I was talking about having all these negative impacts was Victoria's Secret. He had Will Tucker, -3 fantasy points for his yellow card, Jesse Peretti, -4. So that already puts him at a -7 hole. And I swear, I was statting this game out, and I'm like, dude, Feral Hippies has this in the bag. Malcolm is still negative points, and I've already statted out like 5 of his guys. But it was the LA Guillotini set piece, and it was Lance Williams' try assist and that try by Chad Go. That was enough for Victoria's Secret to end Feral Hippies' playoff hopes right there and then, beating him 18.2 to 15.4. And talk about yellow cards. It was ultimately Johan Mumsen's -3 points that did it in for the Feral Hippies. He lost by less than 3. Johan Mumsen ended up getting -3 for that yellow card. Tough for the Feral Hippies. Now, I will say for him to have made playoffs, he did need to pass a certain margin in terms of points scored. I don't think he was going to get that, but nonetheless, he needed to start with a W, and he wasn't able to get that off of some unfortunate events, obviously. And this is the matchup I've been waiting for to talk about here. Vandy, the Ruckin' Goat, taking on Maddie Ruck and Roll. And for those of you who are maybe just tuning in, for those of you who aren't aware, we had the Feral Hippies owner, Stephen Lowen, come onto our show about a month ago. And on that show with me, Vandy, and him, he dropped down a bet. He said, you know what, guys? Whoever finishes higher in this fantasy rugby season,
I was losing at that point too,
will get a jersey from me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. This is going to have our host playing down to the line because they're having a tough season. Stephen, thank you for putting something on the table here for them to compete for. And then I couldn't, as commissioner, I could not ask for anything better. Going back and forth, heading into the last week. And what do you have in the last week? My hosts are playing each other. And winner take all, winner takes the bet. And obviously by the reaction for our YouTube viewers who are watching, you might know the outcome. You might know the outcome of this matchup. It is the Rucking Goat beating Ruck and Roll 30.6 to 26.2, which means Vandy ain't making playoffs, but he is getting his first ever piece of rugby kit. Also, being his new favorite team, Steven is going to send you the training top that he showed us about a month ago for the Utah Warriors for winning, not finishing last in this league, for finishing one spot ahead of Maddie. Dude, great job, man. Great job. I know that's a sarcastic clap.
Wear that jersey proud, buddy. Wear that training jersey proud.
I will say there was a piece of me that was like, man, I really hope Vandy wins this because Matt doesn't need any more rugby kit. He's already got enough that he's collected over there. Let's get Vandy his first piece of Utah Warriors kit, and he's able to get that. And I'll say as well too, the 15.6 points on Vandy's bench goes to show you that I wasn't showing any favorites here. It was definitely not in Vandy winning this fair and square. And I also say that
you tried your best to get your brother to win, and you still couldn't do it.
I will say, does it feel like home?
Losing in last place?
Being in last place.
Well, you know, hey, home is where the heart is, and sometimes your heart is just in 8th place. It's just the way she goes sometimes. So that's life. I'm just happy that I get another chance at getting the first pick next year. And we'll talk about whether that's guaranteed, but you know, I'll slide some
40%.
We'll
40%.
see. I think the league members will have something. And like I said, I'm a commissioner of the people. We run a democracy here. So we'll see whether or not it flies with our league members, the 7 others that may or may not have something to say about that. So with those matchups, let me break down how this all shakes up now going into round 16, which is the very first week of playoffs. Yes, it's playoff time, baby, like I said at the top of the show.
Not for me, baby.
But
not for me.
It's a little bit. Hey, we got toilet bowl playoffs. So let's explain it. Let's talk about it. So the final standings here for our regular season for the very first inaugural Fantasy Ruckers League. Lads on tour, like we mentioned, finishing in first with a 10-5 record. Dankus Anchors coming in second, 9-6. Victoria's Secret coming in at 9-5-1 with that tie there. And then Rugby Morning sitting at 8-7. Bing Bong Theory 7-8. Feral Hippie 7-8. The Ruck and Goat coming in at 5-10. And then the Ruck and Roll coming in at 4-10-1. So a little bit of a tough one there. But what does that mean in terms of our standings? Man, top 4 are going to make it into the playoffs. That means Lads on Tour is getting into the playoffs. Dankus Anchors is getting into the playoffs. And Victoria's Secret is getting into the playoffs. And so is Rugby Morning. So thoughts on those 4 that are making it that you saw all season long?
Well, I mean, I had no doubts because these boys were clearly just on another level compared to me. So, you know, it is what it is. Congrats to the boys, and we'll be down here in the toilet bowl just doing our best.
Yeah, well, we'll see whether or not how that all shakes up in terms of what they can do here. And with regards to how you know what the playoffs going to look like here, because it's going to be Lads on Tour taking on Rugby Morning. It's going to be Dankus Anchors taking on Victoria's Secret. 4 top teams. You know what? I'll ask it now, Matt. If you had your prediction there, who's going on into the final?
Oh, boys, I got to give it to. He's got to support my boy Lads on Tour. Can't stay away from old JJ and supporting him on winning. That guy seems to be a fantasy wizard every time he touches a league.
Yeah, well, he did finish number 1 for a reason. Vandy, before I talk a little bit more about these toilet bowl playoffs, who do you think is going to make it into these finals here?
My money's going on the Schefter of this league, Hokie. I think he's probably going to make her. And then, you know what? I'd like to... wait, is Hokie playing Fitz?
Hokie is playing Malcolm.
Well, then you know what? I got to get my boy Fitz in there, too.
All right, there we go. Well, you heard it from our host. They can have a little have their predictions here. We'll see whether or not those come true, and we'll talk about the matchups that are coming up, and maybe that shifts your opinion with what players these guys have. But guys competing in the toilet bowl here: Bing Bong Theory, Feral Hippies, the Ruck and Goat, and Ruck and Roll. Hey, you still got something to play for. The way I see it, guys, is that we're seeing who is the best of the, not so best. And we'll see whether or not who comes in, I guess, in 5th here. So for you.
Yeah, who's the best, worst looking individual out of us 4. That's what it is.
That is basically what it is.
But, you know why I want to put my money on Hokie?
Why?
Just take a quick scroll over to his team. Doesn't the Giltinis play the Dallas Jackals next week?
Yeah, he messaged me saying
he
that
might have every Giltini player that's available.
He did pick up Matt Guiteau last week, having maybe he'll play, make a first appearance against the Dallas Jackals. I will say though, John, John also made a pickup. He said here. Right, but John also making a pickup too as well, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna pick up this. I think he picked up Bill Meeks. I feel like, or no, Will Chambers. He had Will Chambers on his bench this week after scoring a try. So there's that. So enough about the toilet bowl. You guys will play for it. I'm trying to come up with an idea of something that you guys are playing for. I will say, you guys are still fully a part of the waiver system. You guys are still fully competing in there. So in a way, you guys are impacting how these playoffs are going to go.
I got no fab left.
Hey,
I don't even have $1.
Still put claims. There's other guys.
Zero monies.
There's other guys that have no fab as well. But I want to talk more about these playoffs before we go into a breakdown of these matchups to come in round 16 in these playoff matchups. But I got a little surprise here. All right, I got a little surprise for the players that are competing in these fantasy playoffs, in the inaugural fantasy playoffs. For those of you who are not listening, there are charities that these teams are playing for. The grand prize for whoever wins our fantasy championship is a total of $100 to their charity of choice. And because 6 teams finished ahead of Vandy this season, I'm also doing an additional $20 each for those teams. So another $120 will be going there. So a total of $220 will be going to a charity of the team who wins choice. But there's more. There's more. In addition to those charitable donations that will be happening from the Fantasy Ruckers in the name of whoever wins the league, we have ourselves a Fantasy Ruckers League trophy.
Oh.
And what this trophy? I was thinking, we need to come up with an idea that we're going to play for something every year. And this is not something that's just for the 4 people that are competing in the playoffs this year. It is for everyone that competes here on out for the rest of the history of the Fantasy Ruckers League. I got a box. And we're not sponsored by Gilbert, but people might guess what might be in here. We got a little bit of tissue paper, and people might not know the story, okay? But all of you looking and who are aware of the Fantasy Ruckers, you may take a peek over at our logo and look at what our mascot is wearing. And our mascot is wearing a classic black and white rugby jersey. And the inspiration behind that black and white rugby jersey, I wanted to find a generic rugby jersey that kind of had some meaning behind it, but nothing that looked like a soccer jersey. I wanted to make it clear that it was a rugby jersey. So the rugby jersey that I pulled inspiration from is a team that I think many people will be very aware of, and that is the historical, prestigious team, the Barbarians FC, and that is the Barbarians Football Club, where the best of the best are invited to play on this touring side. So that was the inspiration of it. And I have an actual replica of the jersey here, the Barbarians FC. And what's going to happen with this jersey is not that people are going to play and win this jersey, but we are going to track over time. If you do win the league, we are going to put the team name. We're going to write the team name, your name, the score, and try to get your signature on this. And we're going to pass this around for the years to come and record everyone who wins the league on this jersey. And it's going to get, when I'm back in studio, it's going to get posted back behind me. And we're going to showcase this. This is going to be the official Fantasy Ruckers trophy jersey for the Fantasy Ruckers League. So I'm hoping that the Fantasy League members are appreciative of this. But this is what you will be playing for in addition to the charity money that will be going to the charity of your choice. Something cool to go on. I told one of my friends about this, and he says, that's pretty cute. We're getting our own little version of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants going. So we have the Brotherhood of the Traveling Rugby Jersey. So there we go. So we're gonna get the names around. We're gonna figure out how to kind of figure this all out as we go. But at the very least, we're gonna get the people's names on it and track that over time, which I think will be cool. It's like the Stanley Cup of our league here. Since you're wearing the Avs jersey there.
You know, if you let us know about this whole Barbarian jersey before the season,
I
would have tried a little harder. All
right, yeah.
And I would have been in 4th place.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Same with Vandy. Vandy would have been in 3rd.
Yeah, well, yeah. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, guys, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. So bad luck. Whatever. Too bad, so sad. And there we go. That is the official announcement. So yeah, we got the Barbarians jersey, and then we got the donations that are going. And before we move on to the round 16 breakdown here of what is to come in this league, I do want to mention the charities that the teams that are in playoffs will be playing for, just to kind of get that out there. And I feel like these charities, they're working for a great cause. So I think that there's they should get the recognition of what they're working for and what these team members are playing for as well. So as of right now, John does not have a charity yet. So hey, if you have any ideas for John, shoot them our way. But he does have some kind of local ideas that we're trying to figure out a way to be able to get those donations into him. So he'll submit those to me as soon as possible. But for those of you who may have a special idea, you can also shout it out there and maybe tag us in as well. Moving on to Hokie, the owner of the Dankus Anchors, he will be playing for the Robert and Sullivan Rugby Foundation, who's trying to change the face of rugby in the collegiate rugby scene, particularly in HBCUs across the country. They've established a 3-year plan, HBCU rugby is in the area of Washington, D.C., not across the country, in the Washington, D.C. area, so even a more local impact. So that's really cool. We'll see whether or not he can get the $220 to the Robertson and Sullivan Rugby Foundation. Malcolm, the owner of Victoria's Secret, will be playing for Helinski's Hope Foundation, and they are fighting for mental health of student athletes in the U.S. We don't even need to say it. Mental health is a huge topic. The MLR is doing a great job of really supporting the mental health initiative and making sure that is a forefront conversation that we are having. Obviously, it's a big conversation to be having in collegiate sports as well. So Malcolm of Victoria's Secret will be playing for Helinski's Hope Foundation. And then definitely last but not least, Rugby Morning will be playing for the Washington, D.C. Youth Rugby Club. They're promoting health, physical fitness, and valuable life lessons to the Washington, D.C.'s underserved children through the power of rugby, which is awesome. I've done work with Right to Play in the past. I've done work with Gainline Africa also, all using sport, and particularly in Gainline Africa, using sport as a tool to promote growth and promote development. So I think that's really cool as well. So those are the charities that they'll be playing for. If you want to check them out, you can check our Discord channel. They're all in there. Hey, if you want to make a charitable donation on your own, go ahead and go out there. I mean, it's all rugby based here so far, so it's really cool. And we'd love to see people using rugby as a tool to kind of make the world a better place. So kind of cool. So those are the charitable foundations that they will be playing for. So let's talk about now the round 16 match preview and talk about some of these matchups before we wrap up the show here, guys. Waiver wire perspective, have a look on the Google spreadsheet of what is available. We've been saying this week in, week out, it's getting thinner and thinner. Yep. Not many players there. I would say.
My one advice, you know what it is, Ryan. If you're seeing any Giltini's players in there, even if they're on the bench, because I thought, I dropped Ronan Foley. Mm-hmm. I said, you got to pick the Arrows guys up. I dropped Ronan Foley. He comes on, scores a try. I get that. I win the week. I beat Vandy. I rub it in his face. He's over, right?
Your brother tried to get me to sit.
Hey, get out of here. I'm trying to help the people here, Vandy. So all right, tone it down over there. Tone it down. I'm trying to help the people.
First, I get double the winning to charity. You guys had to win. Yeah.
But, boys, get your Giltini players. I don't care if they're number 23. I don't care if they're number 16. You better pick them up. All right, because I'll be picking them up if you don't, and I'm going to steal them all for you for this Toilet Bowl championship, and I'm going to win it all.
Matt's going to win the Toilet Bowl right there off the back of Giltini's players. Now,
that was hype. That was hype. I'm ready to go.
There we go. Yeah, it's hey, I love the passion. Even for the Toilet Bowl, a good giver. You just gotta go all out, man.
Hey, somebody's got to take a seat on it, and it might as well just be me. Every morning at 8 a.m.
There we go. It's like the I don't know, Vandy, if you watch Rick and Morty, but it's like that Rick and Morty episode. You're Rick sitting on that toilet bowl in the beautiful scene out there, right?
I think it's called the toilet throne now.
There we go. The toilet bowl, toilet throne. Hey, what have you? Whatever's gonna make you work harder for that championship. But yeah, so let's move on here to a round 60 match preview. And I will say on that Giltini's point, Vandy mentioned it. Hokie already owns 6 of them. I think Giltinis are probably the most owned.
I got 2 of them.
One of the most owned teams in our league. So yeah, scrape what you can in the waiver wire of what Giltini's players
You got
are.
23 chances.
We'll see. So let's get into these round 60 match previews. And like always, like we started a few weeks ago, we're gonna give our predictions on these matchups as well. Lots of good ones this week, and lots that will have a lot of implication in terms of the MLR playoffs, the actual MLR playoffs. There's still 3 weeks to play in that season, but man, it is getting tight in those standings race. And yeah, it's gonna have ultimately a big impact of what they're playing for in our fantasy league as well. So let's start off. We have an odd one this week. And all of our league members, if you are listening, the waiver wire will run tonight on Wednesday night because of this matchup. We have a rare Thursday night matchup. A little bit of Thursday night rugby going here, like a little bit of Thursday night football. Toronto Arrows are taking on the New England Free Jacks on Thursday this week.
Wow.
So pretty interesting. Quick turnaround for the New England Free Jacks.
Wait, do they process Wednesday night or tonight? Like tonight?
No, you have to get them in on Wednesday night, and then it will process through that night, and it'll be ready for you on Thursday for this Toronto Arrows New England Free Jacks matchup. Quick prediction here, guys, for Toronto Arrows New England Free Jacks.
I'm gonna go New England Free Jacks. Big game for the Arrows, but I mean, Free Jacks are the Free Jacks, so.
Yeah, I think that I think the Arrows are playing over a lot here. I think what I saw on Reddit was they have a 13% chance of making playoffs. Not quite sure what needs to fall for them in order for them to achieve playoffs. They're sitting at that 4th spot, 1 game behind Rugby Atlanta, who sits in that final spot. Yeah, but not gonna be tough against a really, really good New England Free Jacks team.
Yeah.
Yep. And the only good thing is that Rugby Atlanta is facing Rugby New York, which we'll get into later, but it's a tough matchup for both of them, but even tougher for the Arrows.
Yeah, so we'll see. Now, I will say Toronto Arrows are at home, and they have played a lot better at home than they have away. So we'll see whether that comes into play. But this is a New England Free Jacks team that has only lost 1 match on the season and has won 10 straight. So it's hard to bet against this team. Next matchup, Old Glory DC taking on the Houston SaberCats in Washington. The 2-11 Old Glory DC coming off that tough loss against NOLA. Houston SaberCats, they've been rolling, I swear. Ever since Matt and I had that argument about the Houston SaberCats not being good and me saying that they are good, they're sitting in the playoff spot, man. 8-5, and Matt said last week his team is the Houston SaberCats.
No, now I'm the Dallas Jackals.
Yeah, now you're
now I'm the Dallas Jackals. But you know what? Let's keep it clean. Houston South Africans. I mean, SaberCats. They win. They win this game.
All right, Houston SaberCats get a win. Vandy, what do you got?
Yeah, same thing. Houston.
Same thing. Yeah, I think Houston will also get the win here. And hey, maybe they'll solidify that playoff spot moving forward here, and pull that distance away for the San Diego Legion. This is the one that we were alluding to just a few minutes ago. The Dallas Jackals taking on the LA Giltinis. I don't think it's a point of who is winning this one. Is it over a 30-point difference?
Over 50.
Over 50-point difference.
Yep.
Dang.
Yeah.
I mean, they gave up over it was a 68-point difference, 67-point difference the week before against Seattle. It's a 54-point difference this past week, right? 57-point difference this past week. Yeah, I mean, Giltinis are better than both those teams. The only reason why I would say that they don't get 50 is because they just decide to not play any of their players and just
then they get 49.
Yeah, true. So yeah, I think we're all on the same page with this one. Giltinis are going to win this one, and like Matt said, play your Giltinis players. I think if there's any piece of advice that has been consistent through the entirety of the season, it has been whoever is playing the Dallas Jackals. Yep. Next one, NOLA Gold taking on the San Diego Legion. San Diego Legion find themselves right in the midst of a playoff hunt. They're sitting just 1 game back of the Houston SaberCats. It's a tough one, but I am going to go with the San Diego Legion. Even though NOLA played well, it was against Old Glory DC. San Diego Legion is a purely better team than NOLA. I would imagine they would win this one.
Vandy, make your pick. I'm making a screamer.
I think it's the Legion, but if part of me thinks NOLA, honestly.
Hey, that's my pick. I'm going NOLA Gold.
I think I'm going NOLA.
Really?
Oh,
why? Why do you guys think that? I feel like I'm out of the loop. I don't know something.
I think purely because of the week they just had against the Legion. I don't think they can back that up again.
Okay. I mean, it's a tough week, man. Very physical against the Giltinis. So, hey, maybe they took a beating and they're going to be...
I think Damian Stevens is a game, too.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, there's got to be an upset, and it's sure as heck not going to be Utah Warriors. So I'm going to go with Nola Gold.
Come on.
So there we go. Let's let Matthew alluded it. Utah Warriors taking on the Austin Gilgronis. Austin coming off of the bye, so you got to keep that into account too. Utah coming off that tough loss. I'll go to you guys first. I mean,
Although, Gilgronis are the team that has clinched the first seed. Why would they play their top players?
that is true.
Why would you, even off
That
the bye,
is
why
true.
would you play your top players? Vandy, put on that training jersey. You're going in. You've got a chance, buddy.
Let's get Vandy in there. Let's get him traded. We got him on
For
the
that
What am I-
sake,
what am
I'm
I-
going
what am I,
Utah
prop?
Warriors.
dude. Nah, man, you'd be easily.
Yep.
Nah, man, we're putting him the hooker.
All the positions. Any of them.
Give me a prop.
You want prop?
If
All right.
Mikey Teo can be on the wing, so can Vandy.
That's
If
true.
Mike Teo's a fullback, I want to play fullback.
You're faster than Mike Teo too, right? I think I saw you do that, right? So 4.3 speed, right, Vandy?
Buddy, I can run a 40 in 4.2.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly,
John Ross.
exactly.
I'm John
So-
Ross.
And that's hand time.
Well, I mean, with that being said, I didn't know Vandy was suiting up this weekend on the wing, so I gotta go Utah then. 3 tries,
That's
easy
fine.
for Vandy, right? But no, Utah Warriors and Gilgronis. I mean, I'm going to assume the Gilgronis are going to play a decent amount of their starting guys. I don't think they go full backup, and I think even with us half Gilgronis team, I think still the Utah Warriors will come out with the loss here, and the Gilgronis.
yeah, I'm going against you still. I'm still picking the Utah Warriors. We'll get 2 upsets.
You
this week.
literally just
Nola
said. You
Gold,
literally just
Utah
said I
Warriors.
need an upset, and I can't pick
No.
Utah.
I changed my mind because I realized that Vandy is going to manifest this by scoring 3 tries for the Utah Warriors on the wing when he goes in as his alter ego, Mikey Teo.
I will say.
Who is this guy? Unheard of Devin Vanderpool? Out of Tilsonburg,
They're
Ontario.
missing a van, Vandy. They need a van.
So I will say, man, if it will be hilarious if once you receive this jersey from Steven, all of a sudden Utah starts doing like really, really well. It's just like, just a complete coincidence. You're starting to get into your fandomship. You're starting to get into, getting kid and stuff, and then they start turning around. You have to make an investment.
It starts with the training
There
top.
you go. That's right.
Next is the
They
training
want my money.
shorts.
Yeah, exactly.
Next is the socks. And then the jersey. And the next thing you know, you're on the field, Vandy.
Here you go. Honestly,
It goes
we're
literally in that.
we're like 1/7 the way there, man. You're gonna be on the pitch in no time. We're gonna see you at the combine. That would be hilarious. We got to get a
I actually was playing high school, but then played football instead.
Who knows what you could have been if you played in high
knows
school,
what I
right?
could
Who
have
knows? And then last matchup of this week, Rugby New York taking on Rugby Atlanta in what is probably the biggest matchup of the week, I would
2
say.
versus 3?
2 versus 3. I mean, I think Rugby New York obviously has a little bit more give here in terms of giving up the loss because they don't have someone breathing down their backs with Toronto Arrows. But that being said, there's still 3 weeks left to play in this season. Wins, you need to start collecting wins because you never know when a team can get hot because it's so tight.
But at the same time, Rugby Atlanta is breathing down their backs. And Rugby Atlanta is the guys that can decide their fate. Arrows can't. I mean, they can't
True.
really decide. But Rugby Atlanta,
True.
these guys can beat New York, tie the record, make a statement. But I'm picking Rugby New York on this one, just like Ryan.
There you go. Yeah, I'm choosing Rugby New York, man. I love this team, man. The back line, and if they can put together the forward pack too, it would be really, really special. And then to also see, Nahim Miller-Scudder maybe making an appearance within the next 2 weeks. It would be cool if he could make a fantasy impact in there as well. So we'll see. It took a long time for Wasaki and Nahalo to make an impact. But hey, maybe they speed up things for Milner-Scudder. And it was good to see him at least in the lineup this week. We'll see whether or not he has a fantasy impact in these playoffs.
Yeah, but somehow compared to Nahalo, Nahim Milner-Scudder, I guess, teleported to New York because like a day after it was announced, he was already at training.
Right?
Like Nahalo was 3 weeks after, so Milner-Scudder must have a real fast jet, or this guy's got some magic powers, and he's going to be a star when he gets on that field. Then
It is funny that you say that because I sent out the tweet and I said, I think in the tweet I said, Nahim Milner-Scudder set to join Rugby New York, one of the biggest signings in MLR history. And then I look, the next thing I'm looking at Rugby New York's Twitter feed and I already see him at trading. And I'm like, dude, set to join. He's already joined them. He's already there. I'm just like, what the heck, man? Friggin', yeah, he must have he must have that 4-3 speed to get over the pond there and make it over to Rugby New York.
He just scudder stepped right over to New York.
Hey, there we go.
Vandy, you are about to see the Scudder step if he plays this week. Oh, I cannot wait.
It's gonna be fun.
Scudder step.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna see it live.
I'm surprised, but I mean, they obviously made a lot of impact overseas. It'll be cool to see whether or not they make an impact in this very important matchup between Rugby New York and Rugby Atlanta. So a lot of fun matchups throughout this week that has both meaning in the MLR and in fantasy rugby implications as well. And remember, to all our league members, the Seattle Seawolves are on bye, so you have any of those players, make sure they are on your bench. If you have that set piece, Vandy, make sure you're finding yourself another set piece. With that said, that's all the matchups of the week. I will say, to finish off the show here, guys, favorite matchup to watch for this week.
For me, I got Rugby New York, Rugby Atlanta. That's for me.
I feel like it's the gimme one.
It is the give me one. Matthew's copping out.
You know what? I'm going Nola Gold, San Diego.
All right, Nola Gold, San Diego to watch, and I'll go with the Toronto Arrows, New England Free Jacks, just because of what is on the line for Toronto Arrows, and being a native Canadian, hey, got to go with the only Canadian team in the MLR. But with that being said, man, I mean, like we said, lots of fantasy rugby that has been played. The regular season was great. I want to finish off on this note. Thank you to all of our league members who joined and was able to grind out this whole 15-week regular season. Honestly, without you two guys, without the other 6 league members, this would not have worked. I am absolutely dumbfounded that we were able to get through this season so smoothly, and it was largely a part of your guys' hard work and your guys' commitment to your guys' teams and everything. So I really do appreciate all of that. And I will say,
this guy
so
too,
modest.
but
hey.
It's just getting started.
It is just getting started. That's the thing.
We're just getting started.
This
the
is just
toilet bowl, the playoffs.
And this is just season 1, baby.
But that being said, honestly, with the shoutouts and everything, Ryan, you have done a phenomenal job with this league, man. The amount of time and effort you have put in is unmatched by anybody else's time and effort they put into making these lineups. And you know what, man? Thank you so much. Honestly, thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man, and I definitely would not be crazy enough to do this if I wasn't having a blast watching you guys freak out and get all stressed out, which what fantasy usually brings in any sport. But to see it with the sport that we love most, and hopefully, Vanny, the sport that you're eventually going to love most too as well, to see now that there's actually fantasy in a league that's within North America is just, it's so great. And it's only up from here. There's so much to come. So everyone that is listening, there's lots more. We're going to try to grow this thing. We're trying to get more leads. We can try to get more people in this thing, and let's help out more charities along the way, because $210, we can do a whole lot better than that with years to come, and hopefully we can fill out this jersey with many more seasons to come.
Yeah, in 5 years' time, my name's gonna be right there. Right there.
My spot. That's my spot.
No. Get out of here.
No.
We'll see.
Be gone.
With that being said, for Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, thank you again for everyone who's listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media and on YouTube at the Fantasy Ruckers. Enjoy the round 16 matchups, because we surely are in for a treat. Until next week, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.